You're listening to the Renegade Blitz, the best podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on RenegadeBlitz.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome back to the Renegade Blitz. I'm Ty Polk with Chris Ward and Brandon Walker. Back with you to talk about some new changes in the Steelers front office over the last couple days, and it's official. Omar Khan, the capologist for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was named the new general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers, replacing Kevin Colbert, who has been the longtime GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And guys, it was kind of a hotly contested debate. A lot of people wanted Louis Riddick. Some people clamored for Doug Whaley. There was a lot of different opinions on Omar Khan as the GM. And Brandon, you're always big takes, Brandon, so I want to get your thoughts on this move.
Good move. I didn't know what was going on with Brandon Hunt. That was a good. Brandon Hunt is now in Philadelphia. I would like him to keep him around, but because I think he's more of a capologist type of guy more than a scout, from what I understand it, correct?
You mean Kahn?
Yeah, Kahn.
Yeah. That's where.
So I think he's good with with the negotiations, but we'll see if they have. I don't know who they got. They said Andy Weidel came over from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's had on the past couple of drafts, contributed to drafting. I think he was there when they won the Super Bowl recently. So I think that's going to be the main personnel guy. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with Brandon Hunt. It seemed like he was a favorite. A lot of people in the media were saying because he had that scouting background, he kind of used like 2.0 version of Colbert. Like it seemed like they were molding him for that position because throughout the pro days this year, he was with Tomlin and Colbert, side by side and everything. But yeah, I mean, I guess they went with Weidel, and he'd be mainly the talent evaluator. And Kahn does have a little bit of a background when he was with the Saints before he joined the Steelers in 2001. He did some, he was involved with some scouting there, but he definitely leaned on Weidel for, I guess, more of the scouting evaluation. But he also, he learned a ton from Colbert over the years, with him for 21 years. So, I was not surprised by the move. I did think Hunt was the favorite, just from what he was reading, what the media was saying. But, it makes sense. I mean, he's Colbert's basically understudy for 21 years.
Yeah, let's talk about Weidel. Weidel has Pittsburgh roots. He graduated from Mount Lebanon High School. He went to Villanova University, played on their football team, and also he got his degree, his undergrad in communications, big hint towards me and Chris, and also got his master's in human resource management. So Weidel then, of course, got into football. He was with the Saints. He was their national combine scout from 2000 to 2002 and Northeast area scout in 2003. And then he spent 2 seasons in that role. Then he went to Baltimore, where he was a part of the Ravens championship in 2012. He was the West area scout from 05 to 08. Then the next 3 seasons as the Ravens Northeast scout from 09 to 12. And then he was an additional 3 seasons from 13 to 15 as their East Regional Scout. Then he joined the Eagles in 2016, where he was named the Assistant Director of Player Personnel, elevated from Director of Player Personnel in 2018, a position that he held for 1 season. And then he was promoted to Vice President of Player Personnel in 2019, a role he held until, of course, his hiring as the Assistant GM here in Pittsburgh. So it's going to be an interesting little bit of mix. I'm interested to see Weidel. Maybe this could potentially mean an improvement in terms of drafting cornerbacks in the future, because I'm just basing it off of previous tenure, going to the Ravens, who historically were pretty well in defensive backs, not just safety, but in all sides of the field. And of course, coming from the Eagles, who generally are known as a good defensive back team, but also good on the defensive line. So a lot of future ramifications for the Steelers, of course. And guys, whenever I just went through his entire, resume, did that kind of go through your head a little bit, like more in terms of what this could mean in terms of future drafts for the Steelers?
Yes. I think I didn't know he was in Baltimore as well. What did I say last year? I said the Steelers need a different set of eyes throughout the organization. Coming in, they need a fresh set of eyes coming from Philly and coming from Baltimore. You know, Baltimore and the Steelers kind of do things a little bit similar, but going to Philadelphia, doing things what they do, different set of eyes. They could draft corner a little bit better. They can always find some edge rushers that they always could use. So they always good draft on defense, and they draft on the offensive line too. Philadelphia does, because that was because he was. I don't think he was there when Kelsey was there, but most of the linemen they drafted, except for Kelsey, he was a part of that. So Weidel could be a very good personnel person to help you out.
Yeah, as you mentioned, he's from Mount Lebanon. He was with the Steelers in 1998, 1999. He was in the scouting department, but you bring, like you mentioned, Brandon, you bring some fresh blood. Some people kind of want to see it for the GM position, but they did bring assistant GM with Weidel, and they could have put just Hunt in that role, but so it is pretty interesting that they kind of picked Weidel over Hunt in that sense. And when Weidel and Kahn, they overlapped each other when they were with the Saints. So I think Kahn said he's known them for over 20 years. So there's a connection there. And then it's kind of interesting. The Eagles, man, they had a dominant front office. They had four people went to new. I don't know if it was GM for big roles in other people's front offices. So it is kind of interesting. Isn't Brandon would know he's an NFC East guy? Isn't Howie Roseman? Isn't he kind of very creative and with the way he uses the cap, and he's kind of
he's very very creative, very creative.
He's kind of a trendsetter of kind of the future, not as old school as some other teams, I guess you could say.
Well, you'll be interested to know this, Brandon, because Sheldon White comes from the Washington Commanders as a college scout. He spent the last season, 2021, as a college scout for the Commanders, and 3 seasons from 2017 to 2020 for the executive director of player personnel and recruiting for Michigan State University. White's entry into the NFL was with the Detroit Lions, where he spent 19 seasons, including 6+ seasons as the vice president of pro personnel from 2009 to 15, and a short stint as the team's interim general manager in 2015. He also served as the Lions director of player personnel from 2000 to 2009 and began as a college pro scout in 1997. Of course, he also played 6 seasons in the NFL, but we know him, of course, he is the father of Cody White, who is currently a wide receiver, kind of in that dead zone area going into the practice squad and potentially cracking the main roster. So this is effectively the replacement for Brandon Hunt. And first, what's your thoughts on this, Brandon? Because this seems like it's another NFC East area hire, but you're shaking your head. So
he was only there for 1 year, and number two. He actually came from Detroit Lions for 7.
Well, his last stop was an NFC East area.
Well, no, that was 1 year. Then he went to Michigan State. Then he was in Detroit all them years when they were 2 wins, 0 wins, 1 win, 2 wins.
Yes, but he was a part of the area of the Detroit Lions in which they had Megatron Matthew Stafford. So this was the upswing for the Detroit Lions, and I think he was fired in and around the time of Jim Caldwell.
Yeah, okay, he did, but still, he was still there all them years. He started.
Well, he left. It seems like.
Well, Brandon,
he left.
He was there for a long time, but maybe that was more to do with Matt Millen because he basically destroyed the Lions.
I'm not making. I ain't making any disparaging comments about Matt Millen because where he went to college and
yeah, that's right.
So Matt Millen was a good GM. Sorry, but anyway,
he didn't do a good job. He had an interesting amount of prospects that had hype, potential around them. Joey Harrington, Charles Rogers, Roy Williams are one of the guys that I think of with Detroit. So he was around in that area of time with the Lions.
We'll see. I think he can. He's going to be a guy in the room with experience.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's going to be Weidel's going to be the stir of the scouting and making of the picks.
The straw that stirs the drink.
The straw that you drink. Yeah, exactly. But it's going to be him. Overall, I like the move. I guess you can't replace Colbert. He's a Hall of Fame general manager. So, I guess you could. I like the fact that they got new eyes in the room. I don't know any other moves that they made. Let me guess. Let me ask him about his son. What was he doing with the Steelers before, and what is he doing now?
So you're talking about Dan Colbert, who was promoted to the director of college scouting.
Yeah.
Well, he was already 12 seasons in with the Steelers, where he began as a player personnel intern in 2011 and spent 10 years as a college and pro scout. Colbert was assigned mainly to the Midwest. By the way, I'm reading the Steelers website verbatim, in case you're wondering, on the college level. And from the pro side, he was assisted with opponent advanced scouting and free agent evaluation. Colbert graduated from Miami, Ohio with a degree in health and sports studies. He worked with the football program as a student assistant in the team's video department. But again, this is basically the college scouting, which I'm glad that in a way we still have Kevin Colbert's influence in for the college scouting side, at least on a little bit. That Kevin's probably in here as a consultant somewhere. So no doubt with that. So in terms of if the Steelers are still drafting high quality at the wide receiver spots, particularly, which are basically a gold mine with today's offense, that's good. And of course, they'll also keep up their good work in terms of drafting outside linebackers for the most part. So there's a lot to unpack with all of the Steelers' moves with it, but I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if Brandon Hunt was given the opportunity to go and he got the Eagles job, and it seems like he was given a free leeway just to leave. I'm pretty sure if he wanted to stick around, I wonder what happens, because I mean, surely he could have been named some sort of assistant GM and also keep his title as the director of pro scouting. But who knows what was happening behind the scenes with those moves. So overall, Brandon, you said it's a nice mix of new eyes and old eyes in the room, and I think that's what you want in the end for the Steelers. I don't think you want to have a drastic shift from a team that still hasn't had a losing season in years, and plus, you know how it is in the NFL. One hot streak, you're in the Super Bowl, and it keeps up long enough, you're winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, just a quick thing about Dan Colbert. I actually met him at Andy's book signing for Bill Nunn. This was like back in 2015 when he had the Color of Sundays book. And yeah, I just met him, small talk, but he's a nice guy. When I met him, he was very personable and very. I think I asked him like where he was scouting, and I forgot where he said, but. I'm glad to see him promoted. The Colbert, everybody says good things about Kevin Colbert, and he's no different really than it's a really good player.
It's just like you got to see how the draft. You can't judge it not right now. It's gonna wait till next year's draft, next offseason, because basically Ross is damn near filled. So you know what? I don't know what influence that he has over the 53-man roster. Kahn does. I think that's Tom.
I think that in a way, this kind of helps Tomlin's out with his influence. Maybe it's a little bit more across now. If it wasn't, I'm pretty sure he always had a healthy say on what goes on with the Steelers, especially the more time has gone by in which the team has been successful. I mean, of course, there's always going to be that certain unions are saying, they haven't won a Super Bowl. They haven't made it out of the wild card round or their first game of the playoffs. Yeah. But look, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of teams that want this situation.
Yeah, the big thing now is people, they like to mention that they haven't won a playoff game in 5 years. That's like the big one now that I hear a lot of people saying.
That hasn't happened since what, the 60s?
So, before pre-set 1972.
Wow. We pretty much agreed during the last podcast that streak is going to be extended.
Yeah, most likely.
But we'll see, because I think they might have to do a little bit of retooling on the roster. So we'll see how the season develops. But all right, let me ask y'all a question. Overall roster, what do you think the Steelers rank in the league? Overall roster.
It's tough to say. I would have to sit down and look at all the rosters, but I don't know. A lot of people have them ranked like in the low 20s right now. Peter King had them in power rankings at 23. They're really young on offense. I think it's awful. I can see their defense picking them in games and winning them games or whatever. But I'd probably say like around that 20 range, like somewhere around there. I think.
Yeah, I think I'd probably put them in the late teens. That would probably be very generous on my part. But of course, when you look around, it's tough to evaluate right now because everyone improved in a way after the draft. So it's tough to say it until they put pads on and maybe you see a few preseason games or something like that. But I leave this entire talk and the entire post GM situation saying that I feel more confident about the Steelers. I know that absolute worst case scenario, this team is still going to be on the track of, fighting around for that playoff spot and, maybe advancing one game. But absolute worst case scenario, of course, is missing the playoffs and not being a factor anymore. And that's always on the line. But I still say that at the very least, this team will make it interesting for you once we actually get into the regular season.
Yes, you say, well, since I brought it up, I would think that the Steelers are 20th ranked roster. If they had a better quarterback, I'd put him like in the upper teens or something like the 11-10. But I ain't that quarterback. I don't know. That I'm not a Pickett believer. I am not yet. I'm not sold on him. Jury's out on him. And
look at the offensive line too. You'll be interested to see how they develop. I know they did make some upgrades, especially in the interior. But the receiver, Deontay Johnson's a great receiver, but he's not at OTAs right now, which is not a really big deal. It'll only become an issue really if he starts missing the mandatory portion or training camp. But I don't know about you guys, but I can't really see the Steelers getting him around $20 million per year. I mean, he had one really good year this year. He was an alternate Pro Bowler. He did kind of fade towards the end and had some drops, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
What is he wanting?
What?
He wants $20 million?
Well, that's where the market is for receivers.
It is. It's like that now.
It's like 18-20 range, probably.
I give him early guaranteed money, but that's about it. I don't know if I'll give him 20. It's like I would probably give him $17 million, but over the course of the year.
Now, like there's like better receivers are going to get about 20 receivers that ask for money. Deebo Samuels, I don't know if it's because he's the way he's being used or is it a money thing with him because he wants to trade. But he's going to want out 20 some odd million. Terry McLaurin's going to want about 20, not 25, that'd be crazy. 20 million. What other receivers are we talking about that are?
Well, AJ Brown got paid.
AJ, he already got paid.
Yeah.
Well, both of those receivers are better than Deontay Johnson. So I would say he's more of an 16 to $18 million receiver instead of a $20 million receiver.
Yeah. And the Steelers, they might give him that rate. I don't know really how hardball, if he would play hardball or whatnot. I really don't know. I know Mark Cavalli said that he's not going to OTAs to kind of send a message to the Steelers. But he says he doesn't have much of leverage going into the contract negotiation.
Yeah, I don't think he has the leverage at all for that. But and with a team like the Steelers that have a young quarterback, so they're kind of excused if someone wants too much money, they can just say, well, we can't do that for you. So go find another place like they were thinking about for Juju, and he eventually did. And lots of other wide receivers through the Steelers' time when they had a firm quarterback situation. They're very young now. So this is a situation where if Deontay really wants that money, I guess he can be, this is wishful thinking if Kenny Pickett works out, he could be the Plexico Burress for the Steelers, in which, he probably gets 1 year with the young quarterback, then he goes runs off somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a good comparison of Kenny Pickett, even though, like you mentioned,
that's wishful again.
If he explodes in his rookie season, it breaks out.
We'll see. But what do you think? I've always asked this question. Steelers has a great reputation of drafting quarterbacks, right? I mean, wide receivers.
Yeah.
You think that's because Ben helps him out? Ben was the quarterback?
Yeah.
How much you think that had something to do with them drafting great wide receivers? Because a Hall of Fame quarterback will make great wide receivers.
Yeah, I think he definitely helps. You saw what happened with Mike Wallace. He didn't really have the career that he had when he was with the Steelers. Then you have Plaxico Burress and Emmanuel Sanders. Santonio Holmes kind of did okay, when he left. Nothing really spectacular, but
I think he was always going to be a guy that was going to have a couple good seasons, but I don't know. Maybe if he sticks around with Ben, it extends his career. But I think his career was over within the 2 or 3 years after that.
Yeah, they kind of all know his coach when he did well. Even Mike Wallace, he didn't live up to what he did when he was in Steelers, but he was okay. Emmanuel Sanders actually did really well.
But he had Peyton Manning as his quarterback.
Yeah, that's true.
Even a broken down Peyton Manning is still Peyton Manning. It's a lot similar with Ben Roethlisberger when you look at some of these guys.
Yeah, you're right. And then Plaxico did good, but then his career went downhill when he accidentally shot himself.
Yeah, he did.
Went down. But he was good when he was there, though.
Oh yeah, he made the game-winning pass in the Super Bowl, bro. Undefeated season. Got, I think,
let's think about the Steelers' wide receiver history, even going back into the 90s, because there's guys like Charles Johnson, they got Yancey Thigpen, so many. They've of course Hines Ward, stuff like Hines Ward, Randall L, Nate Washington, and then that's whenever you start going into the more recent age years with it. The Steelers have always found a way to have a good wide receiver at the very least. Of course, everyone misses. That's why you have Sammy Coates and Lima Swede out there. Sometimes it's a palate cleanser. You gotta just to remind yourself that you can't hit them with every single position.
Yeah, I know. But isn't your boy wearing 14 now?
Yeah.
Pickens is wearing 14.
I think we'll say that's Ray McLeod's number.
Yeah, right.
As far as I'm concerned, it's just a number. What was Sammy Coates' number? 11?
He was 14
Yeah, he
too.
was 14 also, yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't think that far ahead, so maybe that's not good. But I don't believe in number curses.
Yeah. Linus Lee jumps out right automatically there.
Hey, he smoked that one Raven, so that's about all we could say. You know. I think, did he catch passes from Vince Young? No, I don't think so. But
Yeah, yeah, he did. He was
Yeah,
on there.
he was. He was
He was on
probably,
the squad when they won it.
probably a young receiver then.
very young Steve Smith USC was on that team as well. So
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things we could say about the moves at wide receiver with this, but now I think a Kahn adjacent move that I want to talk about is the next big the next big contract for the Steelers, of course, is Minkah Fitzpatrick, and I'm just saying this because I've been seeing 4 years, $80 million for him, something like that, which is absurdly high, but it's enough money to reset the market. I've been hearing that he wants to go around. Don't quote me on that number, but I just randomly seen it right next to Minkah Fitzpatrick. But I don't know. You mentioned a lot about Justin Simmons in the past, Chris, in terms of that's around the contract that Minkah is going to be aiming for, barring something new coming out of the waters in terms of contract numbers. But in terms of it with Kahn, I think that you have to remember this is the guy that figured out TJ Watt's contract. I know that everyone wants Brandon Hunt because he was the guy that basically said go trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick, but still, I think the guy that counts the money and crunches the numbers and does the budget is pretty important as well.
Yeah.
I think also Jeremy Fowler said that expect Minkah to want. I think it was Jamal Adams. It was like I think he's the highest paid safety right now, $17.5 million per year. His average.
For a guy who doesn't catch interceptions,
He's like, I think that's going to be the start.
Yeah, so if he wants in that range,
that's what you got. That's bare minimum.
Yeah, which I think the Steelers still get him a new contract. And Kahn's one of the best in the league too to figure out how the whole numbers, how the numbers will work out. So I'm pretty confident that they get that done. Probably training camp or just right before the season, like they did with TJ Watt.
Yeah, they're gonna. Yeah, hopefully there's a lot of changes, at least a little bit of change in how the Steelers do business, especially over the last couple of years. I think he's deserving of that money. I mean, he has a track record of a game-changing safety, and you can think about that with the 2019-20 season, and of course the work that he did in the 2020-2021 season. There's a lot of things, and I think I'll put it to you like this: he had to become a run support safety last year, and that's basically what Jamal Adams is. I think he's basically effectively what I like to call a box safety, getting that numbers. And if you're giving a box safety that much, you also want him to be something like Troy Polamalu. But who knows?
That's not his style. He can be physical, but he's more of a angel safety, whatever you want to call it.
Center fielder.
Yeah,
for Fitzpatrick, I was meaning with Adams in terms of he's a box safety, essentially a fourth linebacker.
If they got a middle linebacker that has can tackle, you have one, but you still got one middle linebacker that has one leg is longer than the other. You got a middle linebacker that's still can't tackle, can't, pursue plays. He got a deflated shoulder. They should have drafted a linebacker and sent Bush down the road.
Yeah, there's a lot you can say about with that. There's a lot that you could say about that, but you could also look at I will say that, yes, the middle of the Steelers' defense, really from the line out until you got to the safeties, was a question mark last year for the Steelers. And hopefully a much improved middle of the defense, be that of Tyson Alulu staying healthy, Stephon Tuitt if he returns, and a return to form for Bush. But there's a lot that you could say that you're kind of banking on that'll help out Fitzpatrick's chances. I'd say in terms of being the one like truly sure tackler as your safety, I think he's deserving of the benefit of the doubt. Any mid-range safety numbers Pro Football Focus tried to put at him last year.
Oh yeah, they were hard on him last year. But, yeah, he didn't get the first team on Pro last season, but still, he's a great player. Obviously, Steelers, it's no brainer thing. What he's worth.
Well, guys, that's our post new general manager podcast. Coming up next, we're probably going to have someone on to talk about minicamp situation as we ever so slightly creep back to the Steelers, making their way back to St. Vincent in Latrobe. Nice return there, so keep on the lookout for that. And we hope to see you then. For Chris Ward and Brandon Walker on Ty Polk, you have been listening to the Renegade Blitz.
Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at @RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on renegadeblitz.com. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. The Renegade Blitz podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you can listen to podcasts.